I write and record songs so that I can hear myself singing the truth back to myself on days when I don't believe it. And I think that's what artists do, right? We have a certain set of gifts that allow us to take whatever it is going on inside and express that in a tangible way. I can say, hey, here's my song, and then you can hear that song and perhaps you'll feel what I was feeling when I wrote that song. Creating art gives expression to what other people are feeling. I can't count the number of times a movie or a piece of music or a performance resonated so deeply with me and gave words, gave expression to whatever it was I was feeling in a way that I simply couldn't come up with on my own. So I make music because I'm a forgetful person. I'm easily deceived and distracted, and music reminds me of what's true. And hopefully, in creating this music, some of my songs can be that for someone else.
And I never was much of a fighter.
I've created a lot of music, especially this year. Fighter, my latest EP, is the third of 4 EPs that I'm releasing this year. And what's so interesting to me is this piece of music, just like any art that we create, is a bit of a snapshot into who I am and what life is like internally for me right now. So I can listen to this EP 40 years from now and it'll immediately bring me back to what life was like for me right now. And as narcissistic as that sounds, I think that's part of the artistic expression. I'm expressing the stuff that's just weighing on my heart right now, stuff that makes me both sad and depressed, stuff that makes me joyful and hopeful, and I'm getting it down. And these are the things that kind of consume my heart right now. It'll be a different set of things for the next EP and the next album and the next album, and over the course of a couple of decades, I will have amassed this body of work that will most likely cover a lot of ground emotionally. And the goal and the hope is that some of that music will connect with other people and will maybe help them through a tough time, or remind them of the truth when they're hearing the lies a lot louder than they're hearing the truth, or encourage them when they're deep in the depths of hopelessness or depression or sadness. So as I've mentioned before, this new EP is the third of 4 that I'm releasing this year. And I wanted each one of these EPs to kind of be its own thing. So the first one was a full band project that I recorded here in my home studio. The second was an acoustic project, again recorded here in my home studio. This one I wanted to shake things up and record it full band with other musicians in someone else's studio. So I booked a 2-day session with Derek West at Fly By West Music. Fabulous studio, even invited people to join and attend and turned it into like a 2-day event where we were gonna record this entire EP over the course of 2 days. I'd never done a project quite like that. First of all, recording in someone else's studio where I don't have to be the one pushing the buttons, I can just for once be the artist and simply play. That was super relaxing and motivating and helped me stay with the music. Secondly, projects for me typically take days, weeks, months, sometimes regrettably years to finish. Deciding to do all of the recording and be done at the end of the second day was a super fun challenge, and as it turns out, it went really well. Everything about this project was different, even down to the songwriting. Instead of simply sitting down with my guitar and a piece of paper, I decided to write using my recording software and to not lean as much on the guitar or even the piano as my voice. I asked myself, musically speaking, what do I feel like are my strengths? And while I feel like I'm a good guitar player, I feel like sometimes the guitar parts that I write might not feature my voice as well as they could. In other words, I might write songs that while they're good songs and fun songs, they might not be the kind of songs that really resonate with my voice and how I like to sing. Does that make sense? So I decided to take a very vocal-centric approach to songwriting And I got to admit, while it was more of a challenge and took a lot longer to actually write the songs, the end result was something that I really enjoy singing, and all the instruments came around that just fine. I was still able to play plenty of guitar, a little bit of keyboard, and get that out of my system, but the songs began with the voice and the melody as the focus. You may not be able to hear it on every song, but every song starts with me going into a microphone. And then there's usually some sort of other mouth percussion, whether it's or finger snaps or claps, all done in this room just while I was writing the songs, and those tracks ended up making it into the final production. In addition, every song on the EP has a stack of ooh and ah background vocals that run pretty much throughout the entire song. So as I was writing the song, I didn't touch the guitar all that much. I created some sort of a beat and then recorded some kind of vocal pads using three-part ahs all over the place to create this vibe, and then I started to write the song. It's easy to get stuck in a rut creatively, especially when you're trying to release a large quantity of music. So this completely different approach on every level was exactly what I needed, and I think it forced me to be creative in a different way than I have in the past, and created some very cool, very special moments between me and my fellow musicians and the songs themselves. Believe was the first song I wrote for this project and the first song on the EP, and it is probably overly simplistic, but I just like it. I kept it so simple. It doesn't even really have a chorus. It's just sing about how you're feeling and the doubts that you have, and then if there is anything that's a chorus to the song, it's this little line that says, I believe, help my unbelief. And then we're back into that same groove, that same beat over and over, almost mesmerizing, sort of.
Oh, I believe, help my unbelief.
While it was the simplest song, it was in some ways the most challenging to fill out, because you want to keep that simplicity and not overplay, but you also don't want it to be so simple that it's boring. Hopefully I didn't land in the boring category and kept it somewhat interesting between what's happening lyrically, melodically, and the different instruments that are coming in and out. It was really fun to see how Tim Horsley, my drummer, played around those beatbox loops that I created. They were all pretty much the same, 4 on the floor, boom, 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 with some sort of very simple percussion around it. And Tim just kind of played around that. I originally thought he would do his own loops and then his own drum parts, and then I would delete all the stuff that I had created, but he really liked them and played along to them, to where when you're in the bigger parts of these songs, you almost don't hear which part is kick drum, which part is me going, gotta come up with a better word for that. It all kind of melds together into one wall of percussion, and it created these really cool, fun moments. Anyway, Believe is one of those honest songs where I'm saying I believe that there's hope in the middle of this, but help my unbelief, because it's really hard to believe sometimes. It's really hard to stay positive, to stay focused, to stay hopeful, you know? Listen is my nod to the pop world with the background vocal parts. It kind of came out of nowhere and came together fairly quickly, but the idea behind Listen is there's so much noise. The chorus goes, I know I can hear you, I know you can hear me, all of this noise, and no one is listening. I get so weary of popping onto Facebook and everyone's fighting about something, and no one's really listening to anyone else. It's just, and escalate, right? There's not a lot of listening to hear the other side. There's just making them the enemy and further entrenching yourself in your viewpoint, and there's no attempt to bridge the gap. There's no attempt to understand how someone could even dare to think differently from you. And it's easier to say, well, they're just clearly evil, than it is to listen. And that's just, it's true in this, you know, the socio-political world of social media. It's also true in relationships. It's a lot easier for me to hear what you're saying and then tell you what to do or ignore you altogether than to really listen and hear what you're really saying and what's really the heart behind it, and to find the things that we have in common instead of focusing on the things that are different.
I know I can hear you. I know you can hear me. All this noise and no one is listening.
And the song kind of captures that idea of trying to be heard in a noisy world. That very final chorus is almost an outro. There's guitars everywhere, there's background vocals, there's drums, bass, it's all there. And the lead vocal is just kind of in there in the midst of the chaos saying, I know I can hear you, I know you can hear me, all this noise and no one is listening. Keep talking louder, make them the enemy, all of this noise and no one's listening.
No one is listening.
Running around is just fun. I have no idea where it came from. It just kind of, I was sitting at the piano upstairs in our living room and I had this really simple chord progression idea. I was just literally hitting the B below middle C, and then I started playing chords underneath it. So I'm playing a B, then I play like an A major, then I play an E major, then I play a B major, so like a flat 7, 4, 1 progression. And it just stuck with me, so when it was time to write, I came down here and I didn't have my keyboard plugged in. I didn't really want to bother with it, so I just sang round, running around, running around, running around, and then created these big ooh and ah vocals around that and this really basic chord progression, and then I just ran with it. And so we didn't realize until about at least 2/3 of the way through the recording session that this was a total ripoff of a Queen song. But I firmly believe there are worse people to rip off than Queen, right? The song is kind of a glimpse into the craziness of my head sometimes, and maybe you can relate, where you just feel like you're running around all the time, almost like you're in a maze, and there's always something to do, there's always some recognition to pursue, always one more person to win over. We leave no room to be still, no room to rest, no room to allow the panic to subside, like it says in the song. There's so much frenetic, just madness in our lives, in my life at least, where when I do slow down, it's such a breath of fresh air, but there's that pressure and almost that sense of panic of, if I don't move and be in a constant state of motion and feeling productive and getting my identity from what I'm doing and how much of it that I'm doing, then my identity is lost altogether, and there's a panic that sets in. And this song kind of just asks the question, what would it take to make me be still, to slow down, look around until the panic subsides? To not be driven by the panic or the inadequacy or that ever-present sense that you must do more in order to be more. And to accept reality and who you are and just chill. And like it says at the very beginning of the song, it's a losing game. Nobody wins. This game we play of trying to find our identity in what we do, or worse, in being better than someone else, or some imaginary standard we have to reach where we will have arrived, although we never actually arrive.
The panic subsides.
Fighter is the title track on the EP. My wife Pam says it's the best song I've written yet. Funny story about this song. We're in the studio recording it, and it was one of those songs that just came together really well, almost creepily well. We recorded, Joel Gilder was on bass, and he just laid down great bass lines for this entire project. Tim Horsley was on drums, and I was playing electric guitar. We locked in, figured out the song, and hit record, and it just came out. The guitar on the left that you hear in the recording, that's the very first take of guitar. And then we did another pass, and I recorded the guitar on the right. And those are the main guitars for the entire song, just basically 2 takes of guitar. And something about it, it just came together. It was effortless. I love it when things are effortless because so often they're not. But there was a moment when I think I was singing, I was recording the vocals for the song, so we're close to done. And one of the guys who attended the session came up, and I had lyrics printed out, and he holds up the lyric sheet and says, so this line of the chorus, it says, if life is one big disappointment, then maybe I'm doing this thing right. And he says, am I reading that right? And you could tell, I think he was a little concerned for my mental health because it's a pretty morbid statement. If life is one big disappointment, then maybe I'm doing it right. Now, if you leave it there, yeah, that's a little messed up. But you go on, and the next 2 lines of the chorus say, but if this all points to something bigger, then I'll get back up and fight. I struggle a lot with feeling beat down, depressed, anxiety, not wanting to sometimes get out of bed in the morning, or coming down to the studio to work and feeling overwhelmed by all the options, or all the things that are undone, or all the ways that my business or my music isn't what it should be. Those voices come out. It's funny how they know just exactly when to come out, but they come out and say things like, you're a disappointment, you're not good enough, you're a fraud. And so the beginning of this song is almost having a pity party for myself. If life's one big disappointment, then at least I'm doing that right, right? At least I'm doing life right, because nothing seems to go my way. Total pity party. But then it flips around and says, but if there's something bigger at play here, if there's a larger story being told, and right now I can't see that story, but I can have hope and believe that this is a part of something bigger, then that's enough to get me back up to fight again, to lean into the lies, to try to speak truth into the screaming lies that seem to be everywhere, and to move one, maybe just one baby step closer to where I need to be or what I need to do on a given day. Just in the brief couple of weeks since I wrote and recorded that song, it has pierced my heart multiple times. I'll come down to the studio and be having one of those moments. I'll listen to this song, and it just, some sort of switch flips in me, and it reminds me, okay, it feels tunnel vision. I can't see past this obstacle in front of me, but there is a bigger picture out there. I hope you'll check out the EP. Again, it's called Fighter. My name is Joe Gilder. You should be able to find it anywhere where music can be found, or there will actually be links below this video for different ways to get involved with it. You can listen to it for free on your favorite music streaming service, or if you want to dive in deeper, there's actually, I created an entire mixing and mastering course around mixing and mastering this EP. So if you're into audio and music and you'd like to get these raw tracks from that 2-day session, bring them into your system and mix them yourself and follow along with me as I mix and master them as well, that's an option available to you as well. Details in the link below.
And I never was much of a fighter.